Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the Scots caught up in the approach of Hurricane Milton. Authorities in the US are warning of the deadly and catastrophic storm headed for Florida. We hear from some holidaymakers who are among the millions evacuating the area.
The scenes in Orlando, it was similar to COVID, like, you know, when you went to the shops and things and you couldn't get anything, you couldn't get petrol in the petrol stations.
Also on tonight's programme, a man has been arrested and charged as part of a murder inquiry in South Lanarkshire. It comes after 38-year-old David Graham died in hospital after being found injured in a street in Cambuslang.
Well, for the foreseeable, I will go out and make myself proud and continue to make her proud.
Scotland international rugby player Emma Wassell speaks about being diagnosed with a tumour months after her mum's death. Should the speed limit be reduced? The Scottish Government wants to know what you think.
And coming up in the sport, there's more injury concerns for Scotland manager Steve Clarke, but youngster Ben Doak is hopeful they can revive their Nations League campaign.
Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. Even watching from afar, the warnings are striking. Florida is right now preparing for the deadly and catastrophic impact from Hurricane Milton. Millions of people have been evacuated from parts of the US state, among them holidaymakers. But there are those who've decided to stay put. Our reporter Katie Hunter has been speaking to families from here, some who are in the path of the storm.
Many people in Florida are used to this, preparing for the worst. But the warnings ahead of this hurricane are more serious than most.
Evacuate.
Especially in Tampa.
Attention. This is the Gulfport Police Department. Effective immediately, Pinellas County has ordered a mandatory evacuation.
Jay Miller, his partner Ross and extended family were on holiday in Orlando, around 80 miles from Tampa. They decided to leave and drive 8 hours north.
Me and my cousin went to Walmart on Sunday night just to get some supplies in, but it was manic. There was no water, there was no bread, there was hardly any food on the shelves. You couldn't get a torch, you couldn't get power banks. So we came back and made the decision to leave.
We are thankful that we're safe. Our holiday hasn't been impacted too much. We're still having a good time, but the scenes in Orlando, it was similar to COVID, like, you know, when you went to the shops and things and you couldn't get anything, you couldn't get petrol in the petrol stations. So that kind of worried us, and we are really glad that we're up here now.
The children are taking it all in their stride.
A bit scary that we had to move because there was a hurricane, but now that we're safe, it's good.
I was a bit shocked that there was a hurricane because the first few days it was sunny.
Laura Clark and her family are also on a dream Disney holiday. They're staying where they are.
We're in Orlando, about 20 minutes from the resorts. So today we've kind of just made sure we've got all the essentials for tonight. I think it's due to hit tonight, probably when we're sleeping. So we've just kind of gone out and made sure, over the last couple of days, we've just made sure we've got plenty of water, plenty of kind of cupboard food, stuff that doesn't really need cooked in case the power goes. And we've just been trying to prepare to make sure we've got everything that we need.
People on holiday here, like locals, hope the reality of this hurricane won't be as bad as the predictions.
Katie's with me now. Katie, worrying few hours ahead for many people, and Florida is such a popular holiday spot for Scots. What is the advice if you're planning to go in the next few days, for instance?
Well, first of all, Laura, the people I've been speaking to today in that report, you know, they are very aware of the risk of this hurricane, the safety risk that it poses and the impact on locals. They're far more worried about that than the impact on their holiday, and they're not in mandatory evacuation zones. But this is the October break for some parts of Scotland, for some council areas. And like you say, Florida, a popular holiday destination. So the Foreign Office has said there is an increasing life-threatening risk from Hurricane Milton on the west coast of Florida. It is saying that the advice for British travellers is to follow instructions from local authorities in the US, including any evacuation orders. The advice for people travelling is to check with your airline or travel agent about possible disruption to flights or airport services, and once again follow their advice. You won't be surprised to hear that Orlando, Tampa international airports are closed. And finally, insurance policies. You know, insurance policies have different small print, so the advice there is to check with your insurance company about where you might stand.
Let's just hope they all stay safe out there. Thank you very much, Katie. A 29-year-old man has been charged in connection with the death of David Graham, who was found with fatal injuries on a street in South Lanarkshire on Sunday. Our reporter Suzanne Allen has more.
As you can see, there is still a police presence here at General's Gate in Uddingston, where 38-year-old David Graham, who was from Cambuslang, was attacked as he walked alone on Sunday night. He was taken to the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow but was pronounced dead on arrival. Police launched a murder inquiry earlier this week following a post-mortem exam, and inquiries are ongoing. Officers had expressed interest in a silver car seen parked near General's Gate at the time of the attack, which then drove off. A 29-year-old man has now been charged in connection with the death of David Graham. But police are urging anyone with any information to come forward, contacting them on the non-emergency line or online. Suzanne Allen reporting Scotland, Uddingston.
A Scotland international rugby player who was diagnosed with a tumour in her chest last month has been speaking about her determination to battle back to fitness. Emma Wassell, who has 67 caps for her country, took ill suddenly after thinking she had a piece of bread lodged in her throat. She'll undergo surgery in a few weeks and says her teammates have pulled her through the most difficult few months of her life. She's been speaking exclusively to our Sports News correspondent Chris McLaughlin.
29-year-old Scotland international Emma Wassell has an incredible story to tell.
Everything I say now is recorded. I think I've got something stuck in my throat. Like, that was the only thing that made sense. The doctor just said, no, it's a tumour. It was just like a what? How?
She was given a biopsy and told she'd need an operation. At her bedside, her teammates were there round the clock, feeding her, supporting her, always there when she woke up.
Something for rugby, my biological family is small, is very, very small. But rugby has given me a huge family. Albeit not biological, they have supported me in a way that I just feel so fortunate. There's people that, like, I feel like I have the biggest family in the world.
All the more special as she lost her mother suddenly just 6 months ago.
It must give you enormous pride, though, that she would have so much pride in you in terms of how you've dealt with this.
Yeah, and she was, there's one thing that I will never, like, I will carry with me forever. I know how proud she was. She was unbearably proud. So many strangers know about me because of her.
Back inside, Wassell. She'll have an operation to remove the tumour later this month. Then she's determined to get back on the field for her country.
I've spoken to so many athletes, professional athletes, who have been injured, who have been ill, and I have never met someone so desperate to get back to the sport they love.
Due it to myself, I am due it to my teammates who have, picked me up and dragged me through these past couple of months. And I'm due it to my mum. I will, for the foreseeable, I will go out and make myself proud and continue to make her proud.
Emma Wassell there talking to our sports news correspondent Chris McLaughlin, and we wish her all the very best with her recovery. OK, to some of the day's other stories now. And prosecutors have welcomed the conclusion of the fatal accident inquiry into the death of serial killer Peter Tobin. The 76-year-old was receiving palliative care when he died in hospital in October 2022, a month after a fall at HMP Edinburgh, where he was serving 3 life sentences for the murders of 3 young women who vanished between 1991 and 2006. The inquiry heard that at the time of his death in Edinburgh Royal Infirmary, Tobin was suffering from cancer, which had gone undiagnosed for years as he refused medical tests, as well as hospital-acquired pneumonia. A new contact team is to be set up to ensure victims of crime receive better support and advice. The reforms to the Victim Notification Scheme will include notifying victims when an offender is released from prison, if they're out on work placements or if they abscond. Victim Support Scotland welcomed the news, saying the current scheme isn't fit for purpose and requires an extensive overhaul.
I think it's really important. There are all individual circumstances that the victim contact team has that support in place, because you could be dealing with some really harrowing situations, and I think it's important that the victims get the support that they really need and they deserve.
Orkney Islands Council has secured £3 million of Scottish Government funding to replace its internal ferry fleet. The local authority plans to introduce 8 new vessels to link communities and boost tourism. This includes 3 large ferries to serve the islands of Westray, Stronsay, Sandy and Eddy. The funding is on top of an additional £42 million provided in this year's budget to support local authority ferry services across Scotland. The sister of Sheku Bayo says her family will have no closure unless the scope of the public inquiry into his death is widened. Mr Bayo died after he was restrained on the ground following a violent confrontation with police in Kirkcaldy and Fife in May 2015. Caddy Johnson and the family want the inquiry to investigate the Crown Office's decision not to bring any prosecutions over the case. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan reports.
This inquiry began its public hearings more than 2 years ago and is following terms of reference set out by the Scottish Government. Its task is to investigate the circumstances surrounding Sheku Bayo's death, how the police dealt with the aftermath, the subsequent investigation and whether race was a factor. Today was its final scheduled hearing on evidence, but the family wants its remit broadened to include the Crown's decision not to prosecute any police officers or Police Scotland over the incident.
Well, for me and the rest of the family, we'll have no closure. We have come this far because we want to know why Sheku died and how he died. But if we don't get there, then we have no closure. So I plead with Kate Fobb to get on with it and get a decision made.
The family's lawyer says they have the support of the inquiry chair, former Judge Lord Brackadale.
To put it bluntly, there has been 2 years of evidence displayed in this inquiry that shows that there should have been charges forthcoming. Time and time again, the Crown Office are exposed for scandals and corruption in this country, for incompetence, yet no one can ever hold them to account. How can that be right? What is the point of this public inquiry if it cannot be allowed to do its job?
As today's hearing came to an end, the inquiry chair said this.
I would very much hope that the Scottish ministers are able to reach a decision on this issue as soon as possible.
But asked for further comment, Lord Brackadale declined to say whether he supports a late change to the inquiry's remit. The family first made the request when they met Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes in June and put it in writing in September. Today, Ms Forbes said that by law she has to consult all key parties and will give their views full and careful consideration. That will include the Crown Office. In 2019, it said its decision not to bring charges followed a thorough review of all the evidence. David Cowan, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Members of the public are to be asked their views about reducing speed limits for drivers on Scotland's roads. It comes after a rise of almost a quarter in road deaths so far this year. The Scottish Government will publish the consultation next month. It's been welcomed today by the Greens, who want a default limit of 20 miles per hour in built-up areas. But not everyone agrees, as our political correspondent Andrew Kerr reports.
Right, we're talking about a public consultation that has been announced by the Cabinet Secretary for Transport.
Fueling debate on morning radio. Road deaths are tracking 26% higher than this time last year. There's a piecemeal approach to urban areas when it comes to the limit being reduced to 20 miles per hour. Views on potential changes to national speed limits, including the faster roads, will be sought by the government. People in Inverness gave their views.
But no, I don't have a problem at 20 miles in a rural, not in a rural, but in an urban area. I do that now, no problem.
I've noticed a lot of the 20 zones in Inverness, people still drive at 30.
The Transport Secretary, Fiona Hislop, says she wanted to restate the government's unwavering commitment to achieving its goal of making Scotland's roads among the safest in the world by 2030. Adding a comprehensive package of measures over the coming financial year is aimed at helping to deliver this. That includes the review. That's been welcomed by the Scottish Greens.
We have to look at vulnerable road users here, particularly children. You know, if we've got a high speed limit, 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, where everybody lives, you know, that is causing unnecessary risk. We need to bring that down to a much safer speed limit, 20 mile an hour.
The Conservatives highlighted an issue with cutting limits in the borders.
There was a pushback from people and residents who said that some of the introductions of the 20 mile per hour speed limits were not necessary, and so they reviewed it and removed those.
Wales had a default speed limit of 20 miles per hour in urban areas, but it's proved controversial. In some areas, the policy's having to be reversed.
Many people in Wales were surprised when they woke up one morning and found that all the roads around them had suddenly become 20 miles per hour. And driver behaviour takes a while to change. And of course, also the police in Wales haven't been able to enforce it across the whole of Wales either. So it's taken a long time to bed in.
Given what's happened in Wales, the Scottish Government will navigate this carefully. Speed limits can be highly controversial, and there's an election in 19 months. Ministers don't want any bumps in the road. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Tonight's main news again. Scottish holidaymakers are among millions evacuating parts of Florida as the deadly and catastrophic Hurricane Milton closes in.
Still to come in the sport, we'll hear from the Scotland camp ahead of Nations League matches against Croatia and Portugal, with Steve Clarke facing a whole host of injuries in his squad.
Now, it's 20 years to the day since the Scottish Parliament building in Holyrood was officially opened by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. It was hugely controversial at the time, the final price tag coming in at £414 million when it was supposed to cost just £40 million. But since then, more than 5 million people have visited, and it's been hailed as one of the most innovative buildings of its time, from think pods and beehives to upturned boats. Our political correspondent Kirsten Campbell takes us on a tour of some of its quirks.
Welcome to Holyrood. Welcome to the new Scots Parliament.
These panels are said to be like curtains drawn on the outside of the windows, but I once heard a tourist describe them as Elvis's sideburns, and now I can't see anything else. This is the garden lobby, where informal meetings and media interviews take place. Everywhere you look, there are design features, like saltires indoors, a map of Scotland in the ventilation system, and depending on who you believe, either upturned boats or leaf shapes in the ceiling. The debating chamber is an ellipse to encourage cooperation rather than confrontation, or at least that was the plan.
Order! I would ask...
What we get from the first...
What is not happening. Tax... They are an utter disgrace.
The whisky bottle shapes symbolise the people of Scotland, a reminder to the politicians that's who they're here to represent. There are beehives in the garden producing honey for the cafe and wax for the seals on Acts of Parliament. The bay windows in the MSP's offices were inspired by Raeburn's portrait of the skating minister. They house a think pod where MSPs can contemplate policy, although often they end up getting used as storage. The Holyrood building was highly controversial in its early days. It was years late and millions over budget. But 20 years on, it's at the very heart of political life in Scotland. And it's open to the public, so you can come and see it for yourself.
Kirsten Campbell, reporting Scotland, the new Scottish Parliament.
Oh, she hasn't changed a bit. A few changes in the Scotland squad though, Lewis.
Yes, Laura, indeed. I wouldn't want to be Steve Clarke right now, having to think about all the options that he's missing at the moment. So yeah, difficult games ahead too. Thanks very much, Laura. Yes, hello there. Well, the Scotland squad may have been ravaged by injury, but one player who's certainly fit and ready to go is Ben Doak, who admits that he didn't expect to be involved in the full squad at just 18 years old. The Liverpool player, who is now on loan at Middlesbrough, is hoping he can help Steve Clarke's side revive their Nations League campaign when they take on Croatia and Portugal. Here's Sheila McLaren.
Back in the thick of it and looking to pick up where he left off. After missing the Euros through injury, Ben Doak made his long-awaited international debut against Poland in the last camp, impressing after coming on as a substitute.
I came on where the team were in a losing position. All I wanted to do was just go and impact the game and get us back into it. And when it went 2-2, I think that was the first time in the game where I realised I was like wow, I'm playing for Scotland here. And I've just been involved in the goal.
He's only 18, but the winger's been in the spotlight since coming through the ranks at Celtic nearly 3 years ago. After making 10 appearances for Liverpool, he's thriving in his loan spell at Championship side Middlesbrough. And although it's been a whirlwind, he's getting used to managing the attention.
A few years ago, yeah, I didn't expect to be here at 18 and even getting picked for the 26-man squad in the Euros, especially the way the season went before it. I was just like, I missed the full second half of the season. Now it just feels like normal. Like it's just on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. So hopefully I can just keep doing well and keep getting into the right people's thoughts.
Another player looking to add to his caps this week is on loan Aberdeen striker Kevin Nisbet, who hasn't been involved with Scotland since June last year. He's back in the squad after Hearts forward Lawrence Shankland withdrew with an injury. Sheila McLaren, reporting Scotland.
Now, after last night's defeat to 20 in the Women's Champions League, Celtic head coach Elina Sadiku says they can learn a lot from the experience and believes it will make them stronger in the long run.
Champions League and being in the group stage, being the top 16 teams, it's a big difference to play in Scotland. And that experience we need to learn from, like for the future. That, you know, if we defend that well, I think we probably ran a lot without the ball. But when we have the ball, it's about controlling it and be brave and play out from the pressure.
On to international rugby now, and fly half Helen Nelson says the Scotland women's rugby team are ready to deliver when it counts to retain the WXV2 title in their winner-takes-all match against Australia in Cape Town on Saturday. The Scots have already beaten Italy and Japan over recent weekends. Australia are currently 2 points clear of Scotland at the top, thanks to bonus points that they've picked up. Nelson says defending their title by toppling the Wallaroos would be huge.
It's something we've been pretty vocal about wanting to do, and I think it's been a different kind of pressure for us, like playing with pressure and playing with that like goal of retaining a title. But I think good for us, like a new challenge and like delivering when it counts. And I think we're just like all geared up and ready to go Saturday because we know like we need to play to our absolute best, and we're kind of relishing that challenge.
Fingers crossed for Saturday then, Laura. Big one there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lewis.
Thanks, Laura.
OK, now here's Stephen Jardine to tell us about Debate Night on the BBC Scotland channel at 10:30.
Debate Night is in Perth tonight. We're just waiting for our studio audience. They'll be putting their questions to Jim Fairley from the SNP, Mike O'Mara from Scottish Labour, Alexander Stewart from the Scottish Conservatives, the co-leader of the Scottish Greens, Patrick Harvie, and the former Scottish Labour leader, Kezia Dugdale, now at the Centre for Public Policy. Join us all for Debate Night, 10:30 from Perth on the BBC Scotland channel.
And now Christopher is here with the weather, and as we've been hearing, pretty extreme weather elsewhere, but how are things looking here?
A lot more serene, thankfully. Sunshine was in short supply today. The best of it was on the west coast. A bit more for many more of us, though, tomorrow, Laura. Thank you. Very good evening to you. Yes, we've had a fairly cloudy picture across many parts of the country today. Overcast with some showers and some rather stubborn areas of rain through the southeast, the Lothians, Edinburgh and the borders. That clears away tonight, and you'll notice elsewhere clearing skies, and under clear skies it will be cold. Temperatures here in towns and cities not far off freezing, in the countryside sub-zero, but around the coast more of a breeze, a few more showers, so not quite as cold. To tomorrow, and we've got low pressure to our east, a north wind backing northwesterly, but we've still got the cold air in play that arrived today, so it will be another chilly day, but for many a much brighter day, some sunshine. First thing, it's cold, frosty, but some sunshine, so crisp conditions. A number of showers around the far north in towards the northern arc, still windy down this east coast with a raw feel. Through the day, the cloud will tend to bubble up at times, but for most, much brighter compared with what we've seen today. Temperature-wise, by mid-afternoon, 10 or 11 Celsius through the central belt and the south. A number of showers towards the west coast, the north coast and at times the northeast. A few inland as well. These wintry on the very highest hills and mountains. Temperatures across northern Scotland, 8 or 9 Celsius. If you're in any degree of breeze, it will feel a good bit colder than that. Tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, clouding over with outbreaks of rain, some showers working their way in. And that is Friday's weather. So a cloudier day on Friday and for some wet. Best of the dry and bright weather likely in the south. South Ayrshire, Dumfries and Galloway, South Lanarkshire and the borders elsewhere. Cloudier conditions. Temperatures similar, 9 to 11 Celsius. Winds now from the west-southwest. To the weekend. Well, on Saturday, we've got a weather front moving its way southwards. There it is there. Some heavy and persistent rain with that, but it clears away. And then on Sunday, high pressure arrives. So it's a tale of two halves this weekend. Here's what I mean. The left-hand column, Saturday, you can see with the icons there, cloudy with rain at times. By Sunday, it should be much drier and brighter. Some spells of sunshine, but rather cool throughout. 7 to 10 Celsius at best. That's the forecast, Laura.
Thank you, Christopher. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. Anne McAlpine will be here with your late news at 10:30 tonight. And don't forget, you can catch up on your international news over on the 9, who will have all the very latest on Hurricane Milton. In the meantime, from all of us here, good night.